Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. MALLOR GRODNER Attorneys providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Alumni Association connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. Alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. Rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. A lot of restaurants haven't survived the last 14 months, and many that did are now struggling to reopen.
We've had job postings at Scenic View, we're coming up on a year, and Trailhead for almost 6 months.
Ahead, more on the economics that are leaving many restaurants searching for workers. Get ready, you soon won't be able to escape the sounds of cicadas.
You can get sometimes over 1,000 emerging out of just 1 square meter of land.
Coming up, how to prepare your trees for cicadas, how long the singing bugs will stick around, and how you can help scientists track them. Plus, nearly 2 years of work pays off in Owen County.
2, 1.
How a new public restroom means festivals are back in downtown Spencer. Those stories, plus the latest news headlines, right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. More than 2 million Hoosiers have now been fully vaccinated against COVID-19, but the number of Hoosiers getting the vaccine is dropping off. About 40,000 Hoosiers are receiving the vaccine each day, but that's down from the 50,000 a day early last month. 37% of Hoosiers ages 16 years or older are fully vaccinated. Now, the state is offering the Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson vaccines during clinics this month at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. There'll be 3 vaccine stations inside the track during the days it's open for Indianapolis 500 activities.
What's really important about the Pfizer vaccine is that it is available for people 16 and older, and we do expect that here in the next week they're actually going to expand that down to the age of 12.
Now, people who get shots at the IMS clinic this month will receive a free t-shirt to commemorate the occasion. Well, restaurants that survived the pandemic now face another challenge, finding enough workers to fully reopen. As Brock Turner reports, their newest challenge might be more sustained than originally thought.
Jessica Fitch is used to wearing multiple hats, and today is no exception.
Well, yeah, so we had the first delivery that our owner, Jenny, took was all the way towards Rockport Road. So, I mean, that's an hour round trip.
She's the general manager at a pair of Bloomington restaurants and says about half of her staff currently work at both to keep things running smoothly. That includes the owners.
We've had job postings at both places for certainly, Scenic View, we're coming up on a year, and Trailhead for almost 6 months.
Today, she's helping work in the kitchen, preparing deliveries at Trailhead Pizza. And on Sunday, she'll be filling multiple roles to get through the brunch rush at Scenic View. That's in addition to managing finances, orders, and planning for large events like this weekend's graduation at Indiana University.
We had a board meeting. A lot of our restaurant folks weren't there. I know what they were doing. They were working the grill. They were cleaning dishes. They were checking on their CO2.
While Tam says restaurant owners are used to filling in, now they're given little choice. It's either clean the tables and greet guests or stay closed.
She knows it's not ready. This is sold. Yeah, I gotta make, no, that's Corey's.
Fitch says fewer workers means a slower recovery for her and other restaurant owners.
That it is a very unnatural and I would say almost painful process to say we can't take any more tables right now because either we can't serve them properly, the food won't come out on time, that we're managing to what our staff can do.
Both Tam and Fitch blame the shortage on a number of factors. Many workers who were laid off when the state issued stay-at-home orders have found work elsewhere. Remote roles in call centers or more flexible and stable incomes at a number of companies ranging from logistics to healthcare were and still are attractive, especially for parents of children in schools that haven't returned to in-person instruction.
50% of Indiana's restaurants are owned by women. We outpace any industry in terms of ownership, in terms of diversity of gender, women, as well as minority of all kinds. And particularly when you throw in ownership as well as decision making. So who runs our restaurants, who runs our hotels, who owns our restaurants are oftentimes the primary caregiver of children as well.
Many restaurant owners and some politicians believe businesses are competing with the federal government's temporary $300 increase to unemployment benefits. Further, they say the state's decision to continue pausing work requirement checks makes it difficult for owners. Michael Hicks, an economist at Ball State, believes there are bigger factors at play. While data shows Indiana has around 130,000 fewer residents working today than it did pre-COVID, Hicks is confident a large number won't ever return to the workforce.
I think there's a lot of families who are going to choose not to re-enter the labor market, certainly not low-wage work. If the structure of restaurants change so that there's a guaranteed minimum wage, that, I know I'm going to work, I'm going to make $15 an hour, I'm not dependent wholly on tips in a very uncertain market, I think that's different.
He says the quick return to normal many restaurants had hoped for won't be on the menu.
If I were an employer, I would consider the challenges in finding low-wage work as a permanent problem that's certainly not going to go away anytime soon.
As an economist, Hicks says he's less concerned with the struggles certain industries face and believes we're witnessing an economic recovery catalyzed by generous stimulus payments.
If workers are moving from lower wage jobs into higher wage jobs, be they in a different sector or would they be online, that's a good thing for the economy. And even if it means that some restaurants and hotels and bars have to close or have to modify operations, we have a name for that, it's called economic growth.
In the meantime, Fitch is just thankful to be training some new help in the kitchen.
And then another cut in the middle. And then just roughly like a couple inches wide.
She's hoping to hire about a dozen new employees and says she's willing to pay higher wages and work with people to develop a schedule that suits everyone. She's hopeful this summer and widely available vaccines can serve up some much-needed hope for her businesses. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Brock Turner.
Well, and we're joined now by Brock Turner for more on the challenges restaurants are facing to find employees. Hi, Brock. There was a new jobs report out today that painted a pretty grim picture, missed expectations. Can you tell us more about that report?
Yeah, absolutely. Today's federal job report showed the country added about 266,000 jobs. That's slightly higher labor participation, which is a good thing. But really, that tells us there's a disconnect, between the jobs that are available and the workers that are able to take them. And there's a number of potential reasons for that.
So how are restaurants affected by all of this?
Yeah, so in March, the economy really came to a standstill. Restaurants closed, people weren't going to go out and ordering takeout. Now we're sort of rebuilding and from the ground up, and many restaurants can't find the same workers at the same rates that they did before. Restaurant jobs on average tend to be lower paying, require fewer specialized skills. So to say there's a shortage of workers, I don't know is necessarily true, but there are definitely a shortage of people willing to take those jobs. I think much the same can be said for hospitality jobs. Some experts have said the government's temporary increase in unemployment benefits could be playing a role in this, but others say restaurants should simply be paying their workers more money.
Now, you mentioned hotels and hospitality. How are they impacted?
Yeah, hotels are running into many of the same struggles that restaurants are. What I'm hearing from the experts is that travel is starting to pick up, but the market looks very different now than it did back in 2019. A big reason for that is business travel. Without much of the demand, and so much of that has been shifted, so much of the demand now for hotels has been shifted to weekends. So while a hotel might be close to fully occupied on a weekend night, come Monday, that's probably not the case. So a lot of the difficulty hospitality is facing comes from finding workers, across all weeks. And then the last thing that I'll say here is that all of this is interrelated. You change one thing and there's significant ripple effects for, a number of industries. So much of that's expected given how dramatically things have changed over the last year.
All right, Brock, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Joe.
State lawmakers are coming back into session Monday to potentially override the governor's veto of a bill that would tie the hands of local health officials during emergencies. The legislation would have barred local health officials from issuing emergency rules that went any further than restrictions created by the state. Now, when he vetoed it, Holcomb says the bill undermines local responses to emergencies that have been key through the COVID-19 pandemic. Lawmakers will also consider whether to override the governor's veto of a bill requiring a new label at the pump for gasoline with 15% ethanol. A simple majority in both chambers is all it takes to override a veto. Well, Scott County Syringe Service Program slowed an HIV outbreak there in 2015. Now the county commissioners think it might be time to end the program. They held an open forum during their meeting Wednesday night. Mitch Legan was there.
So I think it'd be crazy if y'all got rid of this program. I just want to say.
Residents, health officials, and community stakeholders packed the Scott County Courthouse this week to speak in favor of keeping the county's syringe exchange.
We're in a better place than we was 6 years ago.
At the peak of the epidemic, the county saw hundreds of cases of HIV. Last year, it had one. Advocates say the program does more than provide IV drug users with clean needles. It acts as an access point to healthcare and recovery services for people unlikely to seek them out.
It's not just about the needle exchange. It's also about people treating you like a human being.
In attendance were State Health Commissioner Dr. Chris Box and former U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Jerome Adams. Adams was the State Health Commissioner during the 2015 epidemic and praised the county's effort as a national model.
I'm telling you, I've seen syringe service programs all over the nation. I've been to Canada and seen how they do it over there. And the way you're doing it here is the way it's supposed to be done.
Commissioners President Mike Jones has voted twice against the exchange. He can't shake the feeling it enables too many drug users who have no interest in recovery.
They walk out of the ER, nothing happens.
Box encouraged the commissioners to keep the program. She says she respects it as a local decision, but cautioned them about what could happen if the exchange is axed.
Well, we may not see it immediately, but there's no question in my mind we would see increasing rates of hepatitis C. We'd see increasing rates of HIV. We'd see individuals coming back to the emergency room.
The commissioners said they might vote on the program next meeting. It's scheduled for May 19th at 5 p.m. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Mitch Legan.
All red flag cases filed by Indianapolis police will now come before a judge. The change comes after an Indiana prosecutor was criticized for declining to use the law to pursue court hearings that could have prevented a man from accessing the guns used to kill 8 people at a FedEx facility last month. Indiana's red flag law allows police to confiscate guns from a person deemed dangerous to themselves or others. Prosecutors can then ask a court to ban that person from buying any other firearms. Well, the controversial issue of allowing duplexes in Bloomington's core neighborhoods is already a foregone conclusion. Now the City Council is considering a number of amendments that will place restrictions on those duplexes. One amendment will add a 150-foot buffer between all duplexes and a 2-year gap before another one can be built within that buffer. It also caps the number of duplexes approved by the city's Board of Zoning Appeals at 15 per year.
It was, I think, the best we could come up with at the request of our constituents who want to get some assurance that this isn't going to be a flood that's coming at them, that we're going to have to adjust to and adapt to.
Council members against duplexes in the city's core neighborhoods say these restrictions will act as safeguard from oversaturating the local housing market. More amendments with even more zoning restrictions are expected to come next week. Retiring IU President Michael McRobbie says he's leaving the university in an academically and fiscally sound position. McRobbie used his final State of the University address this week to highlight the growth of all 7 campuses and efforts during his tenure to increase diversity. McRobbie says IU's regional campuses were underappreciated, undervalued, and underutilized resources when he became president. He says all 7 campuses have become more diverse, with minorities now accounting for 28% of all students. Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. After 17 years, cicadas are once again emerging from the underground. Ahead, what to expect from the trillions of noisy, tree-damaging insects. And we take a look at an exhibit featuring actress Glenn Close's wardrobe collection, now on display at the Eskenazi Museum of Art. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
Stay close to Indiana Newsdesk as we trace education issues all the way from the Capitol to your child's classroom. So many topics that arise each year in the State House affect what happens every day in the schoolhouse. The WTIU News Team is committed to helping you stay up to date with the issues that affect your family's future. Keep yourself informed. Tune in to Indiana Newsdesk, your source for regional and state in-depth news.
The COVID-19 vaccine is here. It's safe, effective, and it's our shot, Hoosiers. Seniors, long-term care residents, healthcare workers, and first responders are now eligible. If you or someone you know qualifies, go to ourshot.in.gov, or for seniors, call 211 to learn how you can receive the vaccine. But remember, we need to keep wearing masks and following other protective measures to keep everyone safe. Because it's our shot, Hoosiers. Sponsored by the Indiana Department of Health, aired in cooperation with this station.
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. Well, it's been nearly 2 decades since Brood 10 cicadas were last seen in Bloomington. Emma Atkinson reports on what you need to know as the insects reemerge this month.
Beneath the ground, right now, millions of small winged bugs are waiting. And sometime in the next few weeks, these cicadas will burst forth almost all at once. Brood 10 is the group of periodical cicadas that emerges from the dirt once every 17 years to shed their crunchy exoskeletons, sing, mate, and usher their babies back into the dirt before the cycle starts anew.
I think there's no question that they're probably the most abundant insect in forests in North America, because you can get sometimes over 1,000 emerging out of just 1 square meter of land.
Andrew Liebold says Brood 10 cicadas are likely to appear in mass at the edges of forested land, mostly because they feed on liquid from tree roots. So if you have lots of trees on or near your property, you're likely to see most cicadas at the edge of the tree group or in a clearing.
If you have big broadleaf trees in your yard that are sort of open grown rather than closed canopy, the odds are probably pretty good you'll have a lot of periodical cicadas, because that's the habitat they like. They don't feed at all on conifers. So if you have a pine or a spruce, they don't feed on those.
You'll see them before you hear them, but when the song of the Brood 10 cicadas begins, it'll be tough to hear anything else. The rattling and buzzing of their mating call is like a bendy straw. You know, the kind you'd stick in a milkshake or soft drink. Now imagine the sound it makes when you bend the ribbed part of the straw back and forth. That's basically the mechanism cicadas use to sing.
They don't have vocal cords like we do. They actually have this organ called a timbal on the side of their body that they contract, and that's what makes the noise. Most of their abdomen is actually hollow, so it's sort of like with something like with a violin, where you've got that hollow space that allows the strings of the instrument to make a louder sound.
And it can get loud, really loud.
I'm assuming if you were underground for 17 years and it's time to come out and, make friends and populate, you would make a lot of noise as well. So it's going to be about 100 decibels.
Oren and his team at Bluestone Tree have been busy over the last few weeks preparing for the arrival of these insects. Not only is Brood 10 noisy, but they can actually threaten the health of young trees. The female cicadas lay their eggs in small slits they create in horizontal tree branches. That won't affect an established, healthy tree much, but younger trees could lose a significant amount of branches or even die if too many females use them to incubate their eggs. That's why some homeowners are covering their trees.
You don't need to go all the way to the ground with this. You just need to go and bunch it up just around the branch where all the branches come out of the stem, because the cicadas are going to attach themselves to the underside of the branch.
Homeowners and businesses hire Oren and his team to outfit their young trees in gauzy fabric to keep the cicadas away.
It's a lot of guesstimating. It's
kind of just seeing how wide the canopy is going to be and then draping it over and making sure that you can bunch everything up around the bottom without compressing the tips of the branches too much.
But if you're concerned about a young tree in your yard, you don't have to hire a service to prep it for the cicada onslaught. Oren says any fine mesh fabric will do, as long as it's white, to keep the tree cool in the sun. Painter's tape works just fine for securing the fabric to the tree's trunk. And don't worry about your vegetable garden. Cicadas prefer trees and will leave your tomato plants and herbs alone. All that's left to do now, sit back and wait for the cicadas to emerge. Once they start, most will emerge within just a couple of days, and the singing won't be far behind. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Emma Atkinson.
Owen County residents celebrated nearly 2 years' work this week with the opening of a public restroom facility in Spencer. As Mitch Legan reports, they're excited to get back to hosting festivals downtown.
Hosting festivals in downtown Spencer just got easier. Residents and local officials gathered just south of the Owen County Courthouse Monday to celebrate the opening of the town's new public restroom facility, complete with the ribbon cutting of a roll of toilet paper.
This is really exciting for the entire community to be able to have this as an option now for all of our downtown festivities. We have so many things that are going on downtown now.
The project was a collaborative effort by the Chamber of Commerce, local businesses, and community members who wanted to ensure visitors would have a facility to use downtown. In 2019, the County Board of Commissioners passed an ordinance that prohibits anyone from using the courthouse for a special event. Many residents saw it as an attack on the annual Spencer Pride Festival that would also devastate the local economy.
You're taking us backward.
The community had to figure out how to hold a festival without the courthouse, which provided electricity, running water, and restrooms. The new facility makes that a lot easier.
Before you is not just a public restroom facility. Before you today is the physical expression of a community that works together.
Last summer, residents and local businesses raised $25,000 for the project in just 20 days. The Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority also contributed $25,000.
They're continuing to grow and develop Spencer and Owen County generally into kind of a nice little tourist location, and this is going to help. They've got lots of really nice festivals here downtown, and this is going to provide something that's been sorely needed for quite a while.
Local artist Israel Hogan was tasked with painting a mural for the facility. It's titled Heart of the Community.
Everybody has differences, so recognizing the differences and also going about solving the problems that even if there is adversity, that we'll still come to a solution that works for everybody.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Mitch Legan.
Actor and producer Glenn Close donated more than 800 pieces of her costume collection to Indiana University in 2017. Now fans can see 56 of them up close in a new exhibit featuring the films from Fatal Attraction, Guardians of the Galaxy, 102 Dalmatians, and more. How they got to IU is a different story.
A look that led to an evening.
The connection is Professor Bernice Pescasolido. Bernice, as you may know, studies the stigma of mental illness, and Glenn has a national nonprofit called Bring Change to Mind that is dedicated to reducing the stigma of mental illness. Bernice invited Glenn to come to campus, and during that time, I think Bernice knew she had these costumes that she had collected, and Glenn was trying to figure out what to do with them.
So I looked all around the country, frankly. The first place I looked was the Met in New York. That they have costumes, but they told me that they do not collect theater or movie costumes. I went to Austin, where I know they have a big archive for papers, but no one, literally, that I know of or that I could find out had the kind of facilities that Indiana University has.
She really wants them to be things that spark educational experiences for people, and obviously also to ensure that the public understands the art of costume construction.
Those women in the back room at the tables, cutting, sewing, beading, they're the people that we should be celebrating as well.
And what happens after a film wraps or a theatrical production finishes, those costumes typically get recycled, they get pulled apart, they get given away, they get thrown out, and she couldn't bear the idea of these incredible works of art that happening. So she started writing into all of her contracts that she got to keep the costumes.
And nobody thought anything of it until Disney realized how expensive all the costumes were. And understandably, they wanted to make me a second set. And I said, no, it has to be the original costumes that I stood for hours in the fitting room and saw come to life.
I have so much to atone for. Universities have been the most consistent form of preserving human knowledge. So this is an example of preserving human creativity.
McRobbie says she hopes Close can see the exhibit herself during a visit in August. The exhibit is open at IU's Eskenazi Museum of Art through mid-November. Well, the Indiana State Fair will make its return after the pandemic canceled the event last year. It'll run from July 30th through August 22nd. Organizers are adding a weekend to the front end of this year's schedule and then closing on Mondays and Tuesdays each week of its run to help spread out attendance. That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville Fiber Internet, streaming TV, home security and automation in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. MALLOR GRODNER Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Alumni Association, connecting IU's network of alumni and sharing the Indiana spirit through scholarships, advocacy, and volunteerism. Alumni.iu.edu. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. Rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.